Hello, everybody. My name is Alex Surnov, and welcome to my brand new YouTube channel named Numbers, Life, and More. Let's disentangle a little bit this name. Numbers stands for mathematics, and also it stands for the expansion of the audience because I would appreciate if the number of my subscribers and listeners grows. Life stands for life sciences, but also it may mean some personal experience that I may find interesting to discuss with you from time to time occasionally. And more essentially stands for the room for expansion, which is always there. I'm not dogmatic, I'm not constrained by just the given number of topics. If something catches my eye, if something is interesting, I will, with great pleasure, share this with you and discuss it further. But primarily we will discuss mathematics, life sciences, their interconnection, mathematical, mathematical applications to life sciences, and the way how these two branches of knowledge affect our lives, just generally affect our lives as humanity, as the community of humans. So who am I? Why on earth did I decide that I have right to talk about such complicated matters with you? I knew that I will be a biologist starting roughly from the age of 6. Later, at the age of about 17, I developed a deep interest to mathematics, and after having taken mandatory calculus and probability classes in college, I kept learning math by myself from books, including, well, expanded areas of mathematics like complex calculus and stochastic processes and bioinformatics, of course, and so on. I defended my PhD thesis in the field of experimental biology with almost no mathematical applications in 2014 at Dresden University of Technology in Germany. And I proceeded working in academic science. The next stage of my career took place at St. Louis University in Missouri, United States, where I also did some experimental biology in the field of immune system study. And there my mathematical skills became more useful because I had to analyze statistically large amounts of data. I contributed there to a particular discovery, which I consider so far like my major contribution to science, my major input. It's the discovery of so-called pre-effector T cell induction in the steady state, which I committed together with Professor Daniel Haviger and Dr. Adelaide Opegin. Next, I continued being a researcher. I moved back to Germany and started working at Helmholtz Research Center in Munich, where my biological work or experimental work became reduced just down to some relatively simple procedures. However, my biomathematical activity became expanded, and I essentially started to be in charge of most of mathematical computations in the laboratory where I worked. So I have a pretty profound experience in both sciences. In mathematics, I'm rather an implementer, an executor of the previously designed tools. In biology, I'm mostly a researcher and a creative thinker. However, I do know both sciences and I do love both sciences. And I think this little introduction to my background allows you to believe or convinced you that I do have some capacities to transfer my knowledge and to illuminate you on the questions um, that are usually hidden from the attention of just general audience. By the way, what is about my audience? Whom is this channel directed to? Well, my audience is pretty diverse. I would say that mostly the channel is designed for biology students who don't have vast experience in mathematics, but who apparently need mathematics because now computational tools are everywhere and artificial intelligence is everywhere and computer science is everywhere, including the applications in biology. So I will convey the mathematical concepts to biologists and to biology students in the manner that is digestible to people with no mathematical backgrounds and probably no mathematical mindset. In addition, I will, from time to time, include here some monologues or lectures with a more condensed manner of presenting information, which are directed rather to bioinformatics students, not just to students with simply general biological education, but those will be announced separately. In addition, I hope to expand the channel towards the audience with no familiarity with any of those sciences, and I will just spark the interest to biology or the interest to mathematics in people who probably want to study these sciences or want to know something more about them, but who had never studied them previously. And finally, if the channel develops well, I will consider talking something towards mathematicians. So, for example, making sure that mathematicians who work in applied areas truly understands the natural science backgrounds behind the phenomena that they are trying to describe with their mathematical tools. Okay, so why talking about biology and mathematics? Why just these topics? Isn't there anything more exciting or more interesting or more profitable or more influential in the world except for just those two um, realms which are usually associated just to boring, nerdy people wasting their time in libraries? Couldn't I just find something more juicy to present in my YouTube channel? And well, the answer is I will talk about math and biology just because I like it and because I want to share my knowledge and because I feel that I am a right person to share my knowledge. Secondly, majority of you, probably at least at the first stage of the channel's development, do have some professional interest to either of these sciences, and I promise it's going to be useful to spend some time here together and just discuss those questions. And thirdly, honestly speaking, I believe that discussing these things is sort of a mental detox. Nowadays, very many hot topics in the media have a deteriorating effect on the mind if overconsumed. And from time to time, it's definitely a good idea to just spend some effort on thinking about clear scientific concepts, proofs and facts, and experiments, and the ways how to link different pieces of knowledge together. It clears the mind in a way, and it is just healthy for your soul. Uh, Now, this particular video has two ideas behind it. First of all, is the introduction to the channel, which I mostly have already given, and which is directed to the broadest audience possible. And another part of this video is the introduction for my first, well, how to say it, a playlist or a first course of talks, which is about mathematical methods in biology. It's gonna be named, I guess, Math in Biology. And I don't quite know yet how many lectures there will be, but I do understand the general layout of this course. The course is planned to be for biology students, meaning for the people with biological backgrounds, but who don't quite have experience in mathematics, or maybe they do know some mathematical tools, but they struggle to understand the connections between them, or they struggle to understand why some tools are used and others are not used, and in which case to use which tools. So first, in first couple lectures, this course will overview just mathematics in general, mathematics as such. Uh, it's not gonna be probably many lectures, many individual lectures, but it's gonna be a lot of information. Biology is a tough science and it uses tough math, although it's not explicitly told quite often. Mathematical methods in biology rely on deep science, deep mathematical uh, conclusions. And if you really want to understand them, you're gonna dive first deep into formulae and equations and theorems, and you're gonna need this. However, don't worry, don't panic. You are not going to be overwhelmed. I will take care of delivering this information in chunks, in portions. I will make sure that you're not gonna get lost in it, and I will not give you more information than is actually demanded for deep understanding of mathematical applications in biology. Well, maybe a little bit more than that, yes. Maybe I will afford one or two digressions which don't have any connections to biology or biochemistry or biophysics and just discuss them for fun. But usually I will keep myself in the ranges of what a regular bioinformatician may need. Um, okay, what I want to say else, I'm not gonna give you many exercises or deep instructions of how to use particular software packages or how to interpret this or that results in specific scientific articles which periodically appear. It's not going to be a tutorial. At least this course is not going to be a tutorial. I may consider making a tutorial at some point later. I may consider making it privately with whoever is interested. But this particular course is designated mostly to the explanation of the general connection between different mathematical tools, why the tools are built exactly this way and not the other way, and what is their ranges of applicability. On this, I will finish this lengthy introduction, and I will start with the first lecture of the course, which will not involve any formulae or theorems, but rather will be entirely built around the philosophy of mathematics. Let's discuss why mathematics is needed at all, what it does, and what kind of benefit can a biologist extract from it. Let's start doing this. So, why do biologists need mathematics? To answer this question, let's start with the three indisputable facts presented here. First of all, biology studies the real world around us. No doubt. Secondly, this world is extremely complicated. It consists of a huge number of elements and non-obvious connections and interactions between them. And thirdly, the task of biology is to create a description of the studied world that would have predictive power. It follows that we need a formal simplified model that would take into account the main studied properties of the real world and ignore its other features. Perhaps a sequence of models with an increasing degree of approximation will be required. And this model, or models, must be quantitative. That is, it or they must strictly predict the measured characteristics within the permissible error. Strictly, in this context, means reliably, trustworthy, and responsibly. Essentially, in such a manner that you could present to your investor, and in order to convince him or her that the investment is spent properly. Why do I say it follows? Why is a model needed? Why can't you just do a lot of experiments and thereby find out all the characteristics of the studied environment simply by trials and errors? The answer is that the model allows you to understand the mechanism of the phenomenon being studied. If you model something from the underlying principles, it essentially means that you understand how it works. In addition, no one really can conduct all possible experiments, either because they are too numerous, or for practical reasons, especially in the applied parts of biology, of which there are many, like medicine, agriculture, biotechnology. In all these fields, the number of parameters to be experimentally screened through is enormously large, and also sometimes experimental material may be not available, like in medicine, for example, where you don't have access to all possible human-derived materials to answer your hypothesis, or just because you can get them due to ethical reasons. And here mathematics comes to the aid. Before actually talking about why mathematics is so powerful in creating models, let's talk a little bit about what mathematics actually is. And throughout this course, I propose to interpret mathematics as the art of constructing non-obvious, valuable, logically correct statements based on a small number of initial assumptions and based on the fixed rules of inference. At the same time, both those assumptions, which we call axioms, and those rules are not dogma. Different parts of mathematics may well use different sets of them. The main thing is that the axioms and rules within one set do not contradict with each other. That is, by applying them in different orders, it would be impossible to obtain the statements that contradict each other in the sense of the given set. Here is a caveat. When you think about mathematics this way, some may be tempted to think that mathematics is not a science, but rather it is something like a religion that is based on axioms the same way as just regular religions are based on catechism, that the axioms are accepted blindly without evidence and probably make no real sense. This is a principally incorrect view. In fact, for mathematicians, it actually makes no difference which set of axioms and rules to work with, unlike the followers of a certain religion. I repeat, axioms by themselves are not dogma. It's only a starting point for a mathematician. And the main value of this science of mathematics is in constructing complex conclusions based on the axioms. The complex conclusions is the main point. And of course, different parts of natural science can use different sets of axioms and rules, depending on which of them is more convenient in a particular area. Some axioms can be used better in biology, some are in geology, some in astronomy, and so forth. Okay, let's go back a little bit and talk about the need for simplifications. I have told that we require a simplified formal model. And again, I have heard from different people during my biology studentship that mathematics seemingly deals with things that do not really exist and therefore they have no real meaning. Let's have a look at the simple example of why even the things that do not really exist can in fact be useful. The most famous mathematical abstraction is a point. So why introduce something whose size is 0? Is it not really obvious that such an object can never exist in nature? And the trivial answer is it's just simpler this way. If we calculate the trajectory of some object's movements over a distance that is significantly greater than the own size of the object, then obviously this object can be replaced by a simple point. If you compute the trajectory of a cannonball from the distance of 500 meters, you are not interested in the diameter of this cannonball. You can effectively replace it with a point. In addition, there are problems for which consideration of individual points is inevitable, and it's not even related to simplification issues. For example, let's say we want to describe the temperature distribution over a steel plate. Any model we write will contain an expression for the temperature at an arbitrary point. Even if we operate not with the temperature density, but with the formulae that take a region of finite non-zero size and input and output the average temperature over this region, the concept of a point will anyways be necessary for defining both the region itself and for the averaging. So there is just no way to avoid using the concept of a point. Even if we agreed not to compute the temperature density in a given point, but using some average characteristics, anyways, the introduction of a point is necessary. So it already shows that an object that principally cannot exist in nature is very useful for formal description. Finally, I will touch here something which I will come back to later in the next lecture. The concept of a point is very closely related to the concept of a number. And a number is the central object in mathematics, at least in applied mathematics. Positive integers like 1, 2, and 3 can be represented as a count of some objects, like bricks, sausages, whatever. And an arbitrary number can naturally be associated with the length of a segment. And a segment, in turn, is a fragment of a straight line bounded by 2 points. Right? One is called the beginning, and the other point is called the end. If the end is to the right from the beginning, the number is declared positive. Otherwise, it is negative. Using negative numbers is convenience when it comes to temperature or time. Again, it's a formal concept, a negative number, right? It's inapplicable. It's impossible to apply to counting single objects, but it's very natural when it comes to, as I said, temperature or time. In this case, it is, by the way, desirable to have the zero close to everyday values, so that the values that we frequently encounter in our lives are not too large by magnitude. Or actually, negative numbers are also useful for describing oscillating objects like a pendulum. So for example, you define the equilibrium position of a pendulum as 0, and then it oscillates to the negative side and to the positive side periodically. Okay, I hope I was able to convince you that even a formal abstract concept can be introduced for a reason. Can be introduced just to simplify the narration and to make the analysis easier. The key idea in mathematical models of the real objects is to discard all the details that are unimportant. And by saying unimportant, I mean unimportant for a specific task. And those details that are essential for the given task, on the contrary, should be taken into account as strictly and accurately as possible. Now let's progress to the main thing. How do biologists use mathematics? Basically, in the 4 ways described here. First of all, in the form of statistics. Secondly, for visualization and searching for similarities. Thirdly, in the form of mechanistic modeling. And finally, in the form of programming and cybernetics. The distinction between the points 1 and 2 is rather subjective, and different people define them slightly differently. I prefer to call those methods statistics, where the output is an estimate of the probability of error. That's roughly what I call statistics. Not only, but for simplicity, let's take this definition so far. For example, if we compare two groups of some experimental observations and try to estimate the probability that the measured difference between them is random, that's statistics. We have two groups of mice. One is treated with an experimental drug, another one is treated with a placebo. We measured some difference. We want to estimate the probability that this difference occurred just by chance, randomly, and that this difference does not require the assumption that the drug worked for the explanation of this effect. So such methods are statistics. I also include in the statistical family the methods for assessing the accuracy of predictions. For example, the methods that answer the question like how many measurements should be taken to reduce the error in estimates to a given level. And being defined this way, statistical calculations are obviously necessary in biological research and are used everywhere. In fact, only the consistency of the results of a statistical test, the visual inspection, and several different experiments with a sufficient number of replicates can convince both the researchers themselves and the independent reviewers that the result is real. This is the difference, by the way, between biology and mathematics, because in mathematics the criterion of truth is not an experimental confirmation, but a logical derivation, a logical proof. But we are biologists after all, and we care about the biological criterion of truth, which relies on repetitive measurements, statistics, and, well, visual control of your data. That's what about the statistics. The point 2, in my opinion, in my definitions, includes the methods that do not estimate the error, but make the data more convenient for visual analysis. These methods are very diverse. They include calculating of correlations between different parameters, data clustering, noise smoothing, interpolation. When there is a lot of data and it is very noisy, such approaches are necessary. At the same time, there is a caveat. These approaches, by definition, can no longer be controlled with the naked eye. Their applicability cannot be controlled with the naked eye. And therefore, they need to be chosen especially carefully. And the researcher must be by 100% sure of their adequacy. Unlike the statistics, because if you see by eye that your data is not distributed obviously according to normal Gaussian law, and you just cannot apply the tools that are designed only for Gaussian variables. Don't worry if you don't understand what I'm saying particularly right now. I promise we'll talk more about statistics later during the course. So let's return back to the point 2. Many algorithms that based on neural networks are also fall here. Not only the correlation scores and clustering, but also neural networks also belong to this category. We will actually touch the neural networks in the future again, but now in the introduction we can simply say that neural networks are automatic methods for finding optimal formulae for solving a certain problem. Such formulae are not derived from theoretical mechanisms, they are not derived from some underlying principal assumptions, but they are selected simply based on the principle of whether they work or not. Therefore, it's impossible to see any intuitive meaning behind the solution provided by a neural network. However, their success is extremely impressive, of course. When there is enough data to train the neural network available, then the success is expected. But as I said, especially like in the applications like AlphaFold or ChatGPT, no one doubts that the neural network technologies reached an unbelievable success. Now, okay, let's go to the point number 3, modeling, mechanistic modeling. So mechanistic modeling is an attempt to understand the mechanisms that are responsible for biological phenomena. A biologist proposes a hypothetical mechanism, then a mathematician writes a system of equations that formalizes this mechanism, and then he or she derives from these equations the values of some quantities that can be tested in an experiment. Then both the biologist and the mathematician, the modelist, look at these results and see whether the experimental results are consistent with the mathematical prediction or not. If they are consistent, then the modelist says, my model describes the nature pretty well, and I hope that the underlying assumptions used to build this model are truly representing the biological nature of the studied phenomenon. And then the biologist, the natural scientist, can agree to this statement and say, okay, we explained the mechanism behind our experimental effect. Alternatively, if the experimental measurements do not coincide with the theoretical predictions, then everything repeats once again. The biologist comes up with a new set of theoretical propositions. The mathematician writes another set of equations, and they aim to find such a formalism in which the computed quantities are in agreement with the experimental data. Finally, programming and cybernetics. In biology, they play a critical supporting role. Mathematical methods in biology do require a lot of calculations. Even a simple count of the DNA fragments read in a single sequencing experiment is actually a non-trivial task. Very clever people for a very long time have been working and thinking to invent robust, fast algorithms that count the red DNA fragments, and such a work resulted eventually in the creation of Cell Ranger, Velocito, Callisto, and other alignments and counting algorithms. I think I'm done for today. It's definitely not everything I wanted to tell about mathematics and the philosophy of mathematics and the relations between mathematics and biology, but for the first lecture it's definitely sufficient. We will discuss in details many of the topics that were introduced today. That's the purpose of the course. I encourage you to just pay attention to the updates on my YouTube channel and see which topics are the most interesting to you. And actually, I encourage you to watch them all because they will be relying one on another, meaning that the next ones will be relying on what has been already discussed. If my way of explaining myself seems slow, you are encouraged to run these videos at a double speed. Notice that English is not my mother language. Sometimes I struggle putting complicated phrases together very smoothly. On the other hand, if at some point you start feeling like overwhelmed and you can't digest the whole lecture that I'm giving, feel welcome to pause it and watch it in little fragments. Let's say 20 minutes a day. It's fine. Anyways, look, thank you for being with me. I think it's gonna be an interesting journey. You are welcome to leave your comments. You're welcome to share this video. You are welcome to keep your minds open and to tune yourself for an interesting travel into the cutting edge science and inspiring thinking. Thank you very much. See you soon at the next lecture.